to produce these wonderful episodes of people in and around our community of Oregon, Wisconsin. So enjoy this episode, part 3 of Oregon Life.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Schmidt. I'm the online blended learning coordinator for the district, and I work predominantly at the high school. I've known Delaney Nienhuis since her freshman year. So for the last 4 years, she's taken a class with me or sometime in the course of that year. Delaney is exemplifies optimist. She's a smile waiting to happen. When I ask her a question, she's always willing to be helpful. She helps others. What I think is really amazing, though, is that I feel like Delaney is somewhat of an unsung hero. She, her sophomore year, she went out for track, and when I said, Delaney, I didn't know you were fast. And she said, yeah, I didn't either. And here she made it to state as a sophomore. I think last year she placed at state in track. But that's just how carefree Delaney is. On the basketball court, she's a beast, and yet she does it with a smile. And so I just think it's so fun to see how talented she is, and yet quiet and positive she is to her teammates and her classmates. So on the court, in the classroom, wherever I've seen Delaney, she's just positive. And so I was honored to nominate her for this award.
Hi, I'm Delaney Nienhuis. I'm a senior at Oregon High School, and I was nominated by Ms. Schmidt for the Optimist Award. I just remember receiving it. I got this notification in my email. I'm like, what is this? Titled Optimist. And then I was starting to read it, and one of my friends actually got it last month. So it was just really exciting to read it, and then to later find out it's from Ms. Schmidt, who's just the sweetest. It was really exciting, and I was super honored to receive it. So when we went to receive the award, me and my family, you started, and then you said the Optimist Creed, which was actually really cool. There was a bunch of cool messages with. And then you went and shared something you were optimist about. And this was just at the start of my basketball season. So it was really exciting. We had our first game the next day, so I was really excited and optimistic about that. Right now I'm working as a CNA here in Oregon at Beehive. And it's a really fulfilling career caring for these people. And it's a great stepping stone to my future plans working. I hope to become a nurse. And I think it'll just be a very rewarding career. I really enjoy working and helping with people, and I can't wait.
Next on Oregon Life. I was always interested in art from a young age. I started drawing really young, all through high school. I loved drawing. I was really into graffiti a lot, and then that kind of inspired me to get more into fine art because I noticed that the level of graffiti was just getting so cool with 3D, all of that. So that really inspired me to pursue fine art more.
Thanks for watching OCA.
Thanks for watching OCA.
Thanks for watching OCA.
Thanks for watching OCA.
because everything was all.
Yeah.
Now I just end up all the
One of those
senior
things.
stuff themselves.
Of course, he's ready to go.
And then she
Well, it is 5 o'clock,
sorry.
so we are ready to get rolling. So let's call this park board meeting for March 11th to order. Let's call for a roll call.
Herniman,
Present.
Jamison,
Here.
Knutson. Here. McDaniel, absent. Miller,
Present.
Frisch is absent. And Ruati.
Present.
All right, thank you.
Awesome, welcome, thank you, Peggy. For third item, the approval of the meeting minutes from February 4th, 2/25. Those are all sent in the package, so they were in that packet. Any comments in regards to it? Any corrections? Let's call for approval.
I'll move.
Second.
All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. So moved. Public appearances, item 4. Have the opportunity for anybody in the community who'd like to address the park board. Doesn't necessarily be anything on our agenda, but we can certainly listen to anything. Does anybody like to talk to the park board? Oh, quiet as it is. Okay, thank you for being here. Fifth item, reports from the village staff. 5A, Director of Public Works report. Any project updates?
Eric, you want to speak to the parks?
Obviously, as we kind of talked during the last meeting, nothing really on JC. Hopefully in the next month or two, weather condoning, as soon as the frost is out of the ground, hopefully get them there to clean up spots and kind of get moving on field 1 and the other soccer field. Otherwise, not much on the parks end.
I will mention one somewhat park adjacent project. The upcoming street reconstruction project for this year is the North Oak Street project. That's running from East Lincoln Street all the way down to Park Street. Obviously, some pretty significant impacts to accessibility at JC Park, even Kaiser Park. We have been working pretty closely with folks that look like they're impacted, including baseball, and the Summerfest committee will continue to do so, but just be aware that that'll likely impact how you get to that park throughout the summer. The east side parking lots will continue to be open, and the park itself should be accessible throughout construction.
Very good. Any comments from the park board? Hearing none. 5B, Director of Community Development reports. The updates on the Conservation Park Plan.
All right, so Morgan was not able to make it today. She's a class conflict for this capstone class, so didn't want her to have to miss a couple in a row there. But I think she is planning on probably coming in April with an update, and then May would be her final completed project, so it'll be the week after she graduates, I think. But she's gonna be in the area, so we'll have kind of the final planned handover. But she and I did speak, and let me get back to my notes here, on some of what she shared. So just wanted to kind of walk you through what's called her framework plan, which is kind of her conceptual site plan. And then there's part of her project with her class for this capstone project was to pick 2 specific site improvements and kind of do construction level drawings for those. Again, just kind of that practice for her to get draw some of those details. So I can go through those. Obviously, those are nothing set in stone. As an example, it's what she's showing to could potentially go in different locations. So I'll walk you through a little bit of this. The other thing that she told me is, so this semester her professors want them to hand draw everything before it gets sent to CAD. So this is a scanned image of basically trace paper. So it's a little hard to see the colors here, but basically the pink dashed lines are all of the kind of main both paved paths as well as kind kind of entrance points and access around the conservation parks. Blue, which is kind of shown here, would be either paved or permeable crushed, like a crushed limestone, so something that you'd be able to bike on and walk on. And then brown and tan. See, okay, maybe it shows up a little bit better over here. Okay, so yeah, pink are paved, and most of those, I think all of those currently exist. Blue would be that limestone, this is what she's kind of recommending, and then tan are boardwalk connections. So you can see basically connections from Lerner Park, from the Oregon branch of the Badfish Creek, and then also kind of connecting over to more of the middle section of the park, to Keller Alpine. So that's some of the connection points. The site areas that she chose to do the construction detail drawings are actually over here off Florida Avenue. So one is an additional trailhead with parking and kind of a stormwater management feature, and then some improvements to the bridge over there, and then a nature playground area. There actually used to be a playground over here for a very, very long time and was taken out, sort of sinking into the ground, but what she's proposed is a lot more durable and more natural materials. So, oh, the other thing she said here was, this is what she called the connection plan. So this shows how people would move throughout the space. Bikes are able to access blue areas. Walking would be blue and green. The orange little triangles are gathering spots, so that might be some kind of like birdhouse, outdoor classroom, picnic bench, nature playground, basically any spot that's kind of a feature that you might want to walk or bike to and gather or stop at. And then, okay, so this is sort of her, again, hard to see because of the trace paper, but this is her recommendation for kind of the trailhead parking lot off of Florida Avenue. So this is the creek's like right here. So this would use the old kind of curb cut location where Florida Avenue and those homes used to be. But some, I think it's around 30 or so parking spaces, accessible connections to get over the bridge. And then the nature playground area, there's a better image, but it's kind of this little ellipse and a little climbing hill. Over here on the other side of the creek, she had to do a planting plan too. So she called it the children's garden, this nature play area. So that has plants that are non-toxic, low growth, and safe for touch, which is important. And then this would be plants that she's recommending for the parking lot. So this is the kind of stormwater management feature. It's called a level spreader. Lauren probably knows a lot more about this than I do, but she does have a kind of a detail sheet that she did there, but another kind of bioretention basin. But I just appreciate the amount of time she spent on drawing all these little circles that each one is an individual species of a plant that matches up here. And it's all related to, like, sedges are under the bridge where they might not get as much sunlight. They're all, water tolerant. Some like to be wet all the time. Some are tolerant of being wet some of the time. So a lot of thought put into that. And then this is sort of the children's garden area within this nature play zone. So again, a little hard to see, but some of the features you can kind of see a little bit better. This is the planted area for the nature playground. These are picnic tables. This is kind of a pathway around here. This would be like a loose rock play area. So more movable material. This is a little climbing hill with some logs and things to kind of grab onto as you're climbing, different stepping stones. So helping kids encourage, balance and taking risks, but in a safe environment. So we talked a lot about different locations, whether it be near the library, near the like Netherwood parking lot, or this location. I mean, there could be multiple nature play areas too within the park, scaled up and down in different ways, but just kind of needed to pick a site for this one. But I think the thought was, if there was going to be, that was one thing we heard from stakeholders, especially the school groups, the preschool groups too, having a different, they like that this isn't just a typical going to a playground type experience for the kids, but it's more organic and a different kind of space for children. So having a different kind of playground would be, I think, a nice feature. But wherever that is, that needs to be near kind of a trailhead, maybe near restrooms, easily accessible for parents to get to and drag a wagon over or something like that. So that's what she has to share. Again, there'll be more. It's progressing every single week, so there'll be more to share, I think, for her in April, and then the final product in May. But if you have any other feedback at this point, I'd be happy to share it with her. Otherwise, just giving you kind of a status report, check-in.
Awesome. Any comments, questions from the park board? I didn't envision where this parking lot was originally, so I appreciate you clarifying that. It kind of made sense because you could see the water flow, but I wasn't exactly sure what it was at. So how much of that land do we own? So all of Florida Street that was there, that's all village?
Yep.
Okay, that is all after that.
Yep, Florida Avenue Park, and it kind of goes into Dega and DiMaggio. So,
Right.
yeah, pretty much just behind those homes there on Jefferson Street. Parcel, pretty much everything north up to Netherwood.
Right.
That's not developed, it's village owned here.
Yeah, because of the high water, definitely. I agree with you. It's awfully great detail, and even into the planting detail. It certainly does give a better perspective. You were mentioning the boardwalk, knowing where some of that water was, and I didn't pick up on the colors in particular. That was on the northeast side, is that correct?
Yeah, so the two brown sections on her
Okay, over there.
connection plan, the boardwalk sections would be, this is the existing learner path, so,
Page 10, Mark.
yeah, sections here and here. I think, she was trying to also pick the areas that really needed the boardwalk the most, but minimize the number of feet of boardwalk that we might need to get to a path. She felt that, the other locations, and she's looked at like the topography, trying to follow the curve of the land and the high points. So, trying to, get to that crushed limestone path as quickly as possible. It's obviously a lot more affordable than boardwalk, but some areas do need that raised up feature for the path to be accessible year round.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing that information. Any other comments from the park board? Wonderful. When you do have a chance to talk with her, thank her for us on our behalf. Do appreciate that update of it, and look forward to the April meeting. Moving on to 5C, the Recreational Programming Coordination Report, 2025 Park Cleanup.
I also get to be Leanne tonight. She's out at a conference in La Crosse for tourism. But she wanted to let you all know that on April 1st, the Oregon Area Wellness Coalition will have its annual community park cleanup, which runs through the whole month of April. And they're sending it out through all of the different channels and listservs and social media pages for all the different organizations that are within Wellness Coalition. But the sign up is open, so if you wanted to click that link, sign up as a group, or park board wants to participate and adopt a park or something like that. I know it doesn't take very long, depending on the size of your park, and it's a nice photo op and way to get out there in the park. So
I think that's really valuable in order to get to some of the communities to realize what's in the park. It's pretty amazing, even though you drive by them and they look nice, you realize that how much garbage does gather. The wind blows around and other things, and certainly we got some waterways that come through some of those areas, get get dirty. I know I did one around the middle school at one point, and it's just amazing how much stuff that does collect in some of those areas. So spread that news. I know some of the scouts have done some of these and have done a good job with that. Some other ones, they use the parks. It's a great avenue. So keep reaching out, see if we can get people to help us out. Awesome. So moving on to item 6, unfinished business. I think some of the things that we might have talked about. So that would be 6A, the Oregon Youth Baseball potential batting cage in the J.C. Park area. So some things of that was in the packet itself. Come on forward.
Excellent. Hello.
Hello.
All right. Thanks for having me back. Ryan Stace, the current president of Oregon Youth Baseball. Here to hopefully provide a little bit more detail on the proposal of the batting cages for the J.C. Park complex. Youth softball isn't able to be here tonight, so I'm kind of speaking on behalf of them as well. Okay, so essentially we just want to work jointly to add these cages to the J.C. Park complex. The cost of the system I'll get into a little bit later, but basically I've got some comparable like communities in here and their similar fourplexes and kind of what other villages have and kind of relationship to what we have and kind of what our proposal would be moving forward. So, thank you. So just first, just kind of the purpose or the need. Our registration is still going. I think softball's is as well. Last year we were over 800 kids between baseball and softball combined, which is a lot, right? Big organizations. And basically softball and baseball plan on using that complex not only for weekly use for all of our teams, but hosting tournaments. So youth baseball plans on hosting 2 tournaments this summer. I think youth softball has at least one that I know of for sure, if not a second as well. And by obviously hosting those tournaments and bringing people into the community and utilizing the facilities and trying to kind of bring people into town, one of the things that makes a village or a complex like that desirable for other teams to visit is having like cages and the ability to warm up before games and kind of just a lot of other areas when we go to tournaments, they assign ahead of time, hey, these teams warm up in this cage and so on. So just something that would really add to the fourplex of diamonds that we have there now and would make them even more desirable for not only our use, but to continue to fill our tournaments from outside communities as well. These are just some comparables. So Verona Little League Complex is right across from Farm and Fleet there in Verona, kind of by the Pizza Ranch, all those restaurants there. It's a little bit hard to see with the images I was able to find, but they have a very similar fourplex to what we have. They have 1 cage per field, kind of dedicated to each one of those. Then this is Stoughton Little League Complex out on, I think it's Highway B, kind of outside of Stoughton a little bit. But they have those 2 fields there, and they have a batting cage kind of dedicated there, kind of to the upper right of that picture, if you will, kind of behind the fields is their batting cage. This is Middleton. I've played there a few times with my kids over the years. Again, very similar fourplex to what we have in town now. They have, it's kind of hard to see, but there's 1 cage in between the 2 fields up top, yep. And there's some other smaller cages kind of in the, right-hand side there as well. So just another example of these complexes. I think I have one more, which is Sun Prairie. Again, the fourplex is very familiar, right? But they have 4 dedicated batting cages as well. 2 that you can see there where the mouse is, and then the other 2 on the left side in between those diamonds as well. So essentially we're just trying to, take the J.C. Park complex that we have and just add the last missing piece, which we think is the batting cages. The proposed location, which has been discussed by softball, baseball, Rattler Corporation, we kind of reached out to them, the people that did the initial park design. They didn't have any concerns with that location. Obviously, we don't want to impede any other sports, soccer, rugby, football, anybody else by putting them in kind of the middle of one of those multi-purpose fields by any means. And so the proposed location is kind of some of that green space between the path and where Stats Field currently sits. So Stats Field is, based on this rendering, kind of the field that, was there pre the J.C. Park complex. And it did get like a new scoreboard and some updates, but for the most part, Stats Field kind of stayed as is. There is enough space there for the cage. And again, as far as like water retention and kind of some of the drainage and things in the park. That location doesn't impede any of the stuff that Rettler kind of factored in, which is one of the reasons there's not room in between some of the diamonds that we have, like you saw in some of the comparables, just because of the, water and things like that and kind of how the park was designed. So that's the proposed location. We're proposing a rather large cage because I don't think that we're gonna be able to even like retroactively go back and add them in between diamonds. So in order to kind of like fix that, we're just proposing one large cage similar to what's at the Oregon High School facilities. If you're familiar with the varsity baseball, softball fields, there's a large batting cage there. I have some pictures coming up, but that cage actually is large enough where when needed, we can break it into 4 quadrants. And so then we could dedicate one cage per field for the use of a tournament. Also could break it into different ages or sections for practices and stuff during the week as well. So it's not just the weekend tournament use, but all the kids and teams and everything that we mentioned, another practice location for them all summer long as well. So that's the proposed size, 70 by 12 by 14. The concrete pad is a little bit oversized. That helps protect the net. So with the wind, the netting doesn't kind of get over into the grass, and then when we cut the grass, the net gets cut by, the wind kind of blowing it into the grass, and then the net is ruined. So that's the reason that the concrete pad is larger than the proposed batting cage. These are pictures of the high school cage when it was being constructed and kind of what that looked like. Again, I coach on the high school staff as well. We've had great success with these cages for the last 6 years, I'm gonna say, maybe, since that structure was built. And so that's kind of, softball and baseball agreed that has worked out really, really well. It's been really durable. We've had no issues with the cage system at all. And we just thought we'd kind of replicate that, or aim to replicate that in JC Park. So that is kind of gives you an idea what it would look like. The request that the youth organizations would have of the village is basically, number one, allow us to kind of work on this project or get this project going in the park. And really the only request from the village would be the labor. So Nick and his crew, and I've already had a meeting with them, they are confident that they have the capabilities of doing this. They're able to do this. I actually think he thought his crew might look forward to it, just kind of something, a little different than the run of the mill. And we are understanding that by us making the ask for the village, we're kind of at their time frame, and that, whenever they're able to kind of fit this in, makes the most sense for Nick and his crew and his summer schedule. We're open to that and we understand that. We also don't want to do any damage to the current playing surfaces with like wet grass right away this spring or anything like that to get that equipment in there, so. This, some quotes that we've gotten for the project. So the concrete pad quote is actually from Nick himself. You can kind of see the amount of concrete needed, some of the extra materials that would be needed, and the cost. The cage netting and poles, we got 2 quotes for that. One was from Badger Sporting Goods, a local kind of sports equipment company we've used. One was from Beacon out of Middleton. Badger Sporting Goods was the lower of the 2 quotes for the same system, so that price is the lower of the 2 quotes. The last thing there is covering that concrete pad once it is poured, because hitting baseballs on concrete isn't ideal. So it's just for some sort of turf to kind of cover that up. That's something we added to the high school cage maybe a year or so after it was built, and it's been a game changer for all of the high school and youth kids that have used it too. The turf is really a nice surface in there. It protects the baseballs, it's safer for the kids and everything else. So that's that cost there. Kind of some of the work behind the scenes that youth baseball and softball have been doing. Lycon is already committed to donate the concrete needs. They basically said, just let us know when this project is closer, and they would love to help out. As far as the gravel and the topsoil and all the things needed, an idea has been thrown around to contact Mant right outside of town and see if they'd be willing to work with us on some of those other material needs and see kind of how they can help out. As far as the cage netting and poles, we have reached out to other sponsors. They showed some interest, and now we kind of sent like our formal request letter to those other sponsors. We haven't heard back yet. We haven't heard no, but we just haven't heard back from those other sponsors yet and kind of some of the other costs associated with it. Baseball and softball are willing to cover, so if we don't get any more sponsorships on this, based on kind of the commitment that we already have from Lycon, baseball and softball are confident that we can kind of foot the bill for the rest of the netting system and the turf as needed. And then the last thing on there is, again, baseball, softball willing to cover. I do know that Ron Novinska from the high school said that he went from like a friend, picked up some rolls of turf. I think it's actually the old Whitewater football stadium or field, which is similar to what we used in the high school batting cages. We found used turf somewhere that is perfect for batting on, right? And there is a couple rolls of that he said, there should be some of that material available for this as well, so. I think that's all I had as far as the proposal. I'd welcome any questions you have or any issues you need clarification on.
Park Board, any questions, thoughts?
So the village doesn't have to pay for anything, think you have it all covered?
Yep. I mean, other than the help from the village employees.
Sure.
Yep.
Nico?
Just out of curiosity, when you're building this, will you have like any sort of, how do you know how to build it? That's what I'm trying to ask, essentially, because, like, do you hire a specialist for it, or?
Yeah, I mean, so Nick is confident that the village employees have the skills to pour the pad and do all the flat work, and then the poles and stuff just kind of get installed as the concrete's being poured, so. Once that's up, it's really just rope and pulley system to get the nets to, like, stand up inside of there, so once the poles are up, it's really pretty straightforward, just kind of pulling on the ropes and getting the net to raise up from the ground, so.
And you have contacted Rettler, so Rettler's aware. So
Yep.
if you need to talk to them too, they'd probably do it.
Yeah, we could reach out to them again if, yeah.
Rettler's the one that built the diamonds.
Are the poles poured in place, like with before the concrete? Like
Yes.
Put in place, okay.
Yep.
So they're not sleeved or anything?
Right, I don't think they're sleeved, like that, the high school one, in the winter, we take the nets down,
Right.
obviously, for longevity, but the poles stay up all year
Okay.
round.
Does anyone have like a cost of what the labor would be, an estimated cost?
Was that up there, isn't that what?
Well, kinda,
That was the concrete was,
yeah.
okay. It was.
Yeah, you just see staff members, but it's hard to
Right.
tell. I mean, I can't imagine they would be there the entire time. Just, how would that impact anything else?
If you guys have other questions, I can calculate that really quickly.
Eric, what do you think of this?
I think it's a great idea. There's not many baseball facilities I've been to that don't have batting cages. It was actually one of the first things I noticed the first time I went to JC. And I've actually been a part of putting a couple batting cages similar and different from this. They make these things easy enough that you don't need to hire professionals to put them up. Otherwise, most villages and organizations wouldn't buy them. So, yeah.
The concrete pad isn't a weight bearing type of thing. It's not something that is going to be substantial and has to really support a lot of weight or foundation type things.
Last year, I know, for example, Public Works was out pouring concrete pads for some of the memorial benches in like Keller Alpine Park, so if you wanna see some of that, but I mean, that probably took them a few days to level the ground and everything and then get it poured and, yeah, that was all just our own crews out there around the ponds, so, yeah, yeah, but,
Lee,
yeah,
they
pretty
also
cool to
did it.
watch them work and yeah, nice to have kind of a different type of project.
I think they also did that water tower, the small water tower over Park Street.
Mm-hmm, yep.
The concrete for that.
Last year, they also helped pour, I think last year I was here asking if we could renovate the dugouts on Kaiser 1, and they poured the pads for those too last year, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about Public Works, the quality of their work. I was just curious what it would take.
So probably about $10,000 to $12,000 roughly.
I don't remember how long the high school cages have been there now. Is that every 5, 6 years?
I guessed 6 years.
6 years. So when the high school cage was done, when that project was done, amazingly enough, that was all done for $30,000. So the cost has gone up about $2,000 since then, which is amazing. And I can tell you that if they choose to use Badger's installer, which is that gentleman right there in the picture, they had both of those cages. Once the poles were in, they had everything within. He was there about a half a day at most, and he was done. So they go through it pretty quick when they install it, so it's not a very long project once they get moving.
Good. Any comments? Nico?
1 second, I need to think it through.
Any other comments from the park board? Oh, good. Don't have any? Okay. I'm assuming we'd like to have an action in regards to the park board? Get a motion for that? We have a motion to approve as proposed.
I will make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Judy. Any other thoughts, comments?
I guess my only other thought is it's a lot easier to say yes to projects when, they're laid out, like this, so thank you for doing that. And it's a lot easier to say yes to when you come with, more than 1% of the overall cost saying, here's the donation. I mean, there's a lot here, for it. And I think it'll be a good addition to the park, as well.
I agree. I appreciate putting all that information together. So we got a motion and a second on it. All in favor? Yes, Nico.
If you could reach out to your sponsors and maybe ask about covering labor as well, it wouldn't hurt for certain.
Labor for the
laying of the pads.
Good for the pad.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand that. Okay.
Can I? No, I'm sorry, Judy. If I could just make a comment.
Yes.
And reference something that Ryan said to Nico's point. That's a really good question. One thing that is nice about this project is that concrete work is a skill that our staff uses pretty routinely on other projects to benefit the village, and we actually just did this for another project. Our staff is very talented and our rates are much less than hiring it outside. So this is something that Nick and his team is really looking forward to as far as building that skill set for the staff so that we have that going forward. So there is a real benefit to doing this work in-house in so much as we get that training and can pay that forward.
Thank you very much.
Good point. Let's call for a vote. All in favor, state by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? So moved. Right. Appreciate very much for you putting all your work together and presenting this.
Yeah, thank you.
Should be easier to get sponsors now.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
All right. So item 7, any new business that's coming forward, anything maybe we talk about? So item 7A, the Oregon Soccer Club, looking at temporary outdoor lighting at Highlands of Netherwood Park. Welcome, Eric.
Eric.
Thank you.
Good
Hello.
state your name.
Eric Anderson. I'm the president of Oregon Soccer Club. Back again.
Forever. What year is it?
You know,
Who's counting?
I need to look that up. People ask me that all the time. I don't know. Yes, so they are temporary lights. We like to call them portable lights because I think in some minds you could hear temporary and think they're going to be there for a period of time, but these are literally, they're in bags. Take them out, put them up, use them, take them, put them back in the bag, walk away. So, yep, there they are. There's pictures of them. So that's 2. We have 8, which is, we might not, is that 8? No.
Like more than that.
Yeah, that's not ours. Yeah, so 8 is what the company recommends for a full-size field. We started with 4. We decided to buy 4 more. We did a good amount of research trying to find something like this. I'm sorry, I should probably go back to why we're doing that. Let's start with that. So especially in the fall, a little bit in the early spring, We struggle with the daylight, the sunlight. All of our coaches have day jobs. They have some flexibility, most of them have some flexibility to leave a little bit early so they can come run practices. But, you know, especially like October into early November, gets dark at 5:30, 5 o'clock. Our folks aren't even off work by then. So we have seen other clubs for years that have portable lights. What you commonly see are much larger than what we have, gas-powered generator lights. They make a lot of noise. They're not LED. They tend to have some light pollution with them. So we didn't want to do that. So when we came across these, we were very interested in them. They run on rechargeable batteries. There's no noise whatsoever from them. They are LED. The way the light is built, you cannot point it up. It only will go down. So the light is all focused on the field. There's very little light pollution. Yeah, you can't, so there's a picture of it. You can't bend it. I mean, you can push it up a tiny little bit, but you couldn't turn it and shoot it up into the air. They are very portable. They fold down. The lights come in a pouch about like this, and then there's tripods that go with them. And yeah, what this would allow us to do would be able to continue to have our sessions for our teams, you know, whatever the light looks like. You know, we're coaching kids. We're not going to be out there at 10 or 11 o'clock at night. That's not what we're looking at. The other thing is these are only meant for practice. They are not of any kind of standard for a game competition. So there's no thought of, oh, we should put up lights and play games. This would be practices only. Again, like the latest we would probably run would be in reality 8 o'clock. But it would allow us to then still have our regular practice times for teams. And we're proposing, our request is to use them at Highlands of Netherwood. We're not asking to use them anywhere else. I think that probably covers about everything that
I'm
I
impressed with
laid
the-
out.
Impressed with the technology. LED
Yeah.
has really added a lot, and the ability to do batteries off of that is wonderful. I envisioned gas powered, you know, put the pole up high. Andy and I dealt with those before, and like, wait a minute.
Yeah, and I think the other thing was like we've played games at fields with the ones with the gas generators. I mean, it's loud. It's, you know, it's not good. You turn these on, if you had your eyes closed, you would not know you were right next to it. There's zero sound. So the only issue we had is they're made in England, and we had a very hard time getting them here. They were about 8 weeks late. But other than that, yeah, with boat issues and yeah, plane issues, yeah. But other than that, no. We think they're very helpful and useful in what we're trying to do. And I guess the one other thing I'd bring up is when there is sunlight, we're on the fields until 8 o'clock. So it's not like we're asking to go like later into the night. Now, obviously 8 o'clock in November looks a lot different than 8 o'clock in August. We do understand that, but by a time definition, we're not asking to go later. We're still 7:30 if it's 7:30, but it would be a little different to be in the dark and have that.
Have you been able to turn these on yet by the field, or did you just get them?
Oh, no, yeah, we've had them on. We know what they're like.
Okay.
They work very well.
So the people across the street from Highlands are,
So, well, we have not used them there. We're
Oh.
coming to ask you for permission to do that. We're
Oh, I
not gonna
didn't-
do that.
that's why I meant,
We did have permission from the school district to use some, so we did, we had maybe a week where 2 weeks where we tried them at Prairie View.
I literally, I have zero problem with this. I think it's fine. I'm, like most things, sometimes in this community, someone's gonna question the houses that are across the street on whether it's gonna shine in their windows at 8 o'clock at night, so. I'm sure it won't, but I'm sure it will come up. So, I'm sure you've thought about that.
Yeah,
But I'm just
yeah.
hitting it now because I'm assuming it will hit you up, so. The way they're designed, well, I have it up on here, but the way they're designed, it goes straight down, so I can't assume that would even make it across the parking lot to the other side of the
No.
road, but.
No, and even when we had them up at Prairie View, I was coming down,
Oak?
I don't know my streets. No, from the high school.
Oh, Nygaard or
Nygaard.
something? Okay.
It wasn't until I got about halfway down the block that I could even see, like normally, you know, when you, around a stadium, you can see the lights from a distance. This was much more reduced. I've heard nothing of complaints in that area. We picked that area specifically because the houses there back up to Prairie View, right? And then the schools, and so you've pretty much just got kind of 3 houses that could possibly complain, and we did not hear a thing.
I mean, you would assume if they would be shining into the houses, they would be shining into the players' eyes, so that would be bad, you know, so them pointing down, I mean, I think there's a low possibility of that, but, what are the hours at Highlands and Otherwood? Is it a certain hour frame, or is it like a sunrise to sunset type of thing? I don't remember right now.
That's a great question. I believe it is,
Because like county parks are hours, but the
Right.
town parks are daylight type of things.
and I think it's the latter, but let me take a look.
That would, I mean, that's
Obviously,
the
right.
hurdle that I would see, and I, you know, obviously work around.
Right, obviously, we've got some parks that are lit, so they are being used, like Kaiser, after hours. But one thing I was just gonna say, if you're not familiar with the village lighting ordinance, which I run into all the time, it's a 1/2-foot candle, which is pretty dim, is not allowed to kind of trespass across property lines. So because of where the field is and the buffer of the roads and everything like that, it would certainly meet our requirements. And yeah, I think the fact that they're gonna be pointed down at the ground, because that's where you need people to be able to see and not trip over each other and things like that too. I mean, even just from these pictures, I can tell right away it's not gonna
Yeah, I
be
mean,
violating any.
the only ones would be on the other side, right? The houses
on, like,
along-
Peterson
yeah,
Trail,
right on
yeah.
there. Those are the only ones that would probably even,
know
I
that
mean,
they
the rest
were
of them
on, right.
are so far back, I
Those,
can't.
those are the ones I'm referencing, are the ones.
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah,
use.
yeah, we've talked about, you know, do we send out a neighbor letter or anything like that? I think, you know, maybe is even just an FYI, hey, this has been, you know, talked about and approved, we're gonna see how this, you know, goes this year or something like that. But, yeah, I don't think that people will be, maybe once they see it, it doesn't seem like it'll be as you
And
know,
we're happy to
intrusive. Mhm.
go, come out, set them up.
Do a demo,
Let people
yeah.
see it, absolutely, that's fine too. So they're on a tripod, so we can make them as tall as we want. I'm trying to think of how big the tripod is, though. Don't know that answer.
So it could be a
that
little
looks
taller
like a
than a
good-
goal.
10 feet.
That looks
Yeah,
like at least
I
10 to
wanna
12
say,
feet.
I wanna say 12, but
14?
I could be wrong.
I mean, it's not like we're taking the village's light tower out there and
No.
letting that run.
No,
Yeah.
and again, I think, you know, one of the big things for us was that it's portable, right? We're not asking to put them in, we're
Yeah.
just asking to use them and take them away.
Yeah.
They're,
you
nobody else has to worry about them.
Likewise, it's limited hours.
Right.
So it's
Like I
not-
said, the only hurdle that I see is just what the park hours are. I tried to look online, I couldn't find it either, but
Yeah, I'm not finding it, but I will do a little more digging and get back to you.
I mean, I would be all in favor of an exemption for that as well, so.
Mhm. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think Highlands right now too, last year we did 5 days a week to give it 2 rest days.
Yep.
And I know, that hasn't necessarily been determined yet for this year, but last year was what, Thursdays and Sundays were
So
the
it's-
rest days?
Yeah, it's
We-
been-
Yeah.
yeah, it's
keep it
Fridays now.
Fridays and Sundays.
Fridays
We're
and
gonna-
Sundays,
We're gonna
okay.
rest Fridays and Sundays there.
Well, that's good. I'm in favor as well. Let's call for a vote and approval on this. Do you have a motion on it?
I'll move.
Thank you, Andy. Do you have a second?
Second.
Dave, thank you. Any other discussion? Any
Can
other
we make sure that we put the hours in?
limits of hours?
Yeah.
Certainly. To
Yeah.
what the hours?
They had what, no later than 9.
9 o'clock?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, that's fair enough. We'll include that in the motion. Got that? Yes? Any other discussion?
I mean, again, just to make sure that it's okay to be in the park at that time. I guess that would be pending that, or we could,
Based on the village
We can
park?
adjust
based on the
that.
village, when parks are available or open.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good. All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed, same sign. Any abstention? So moved. Eric, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you very much, really appreciate it. Thanks.
Lauren, why is it so hard to find that information?
That is an excellent question.
AI tells me it's dawn to dusk, but I don't know if that's right.
Interesting.
Could be a different Oregon than AI.
Yeah.
But, so item 7B, review discussion regarding athletic facility usage fees and policies. Do we have any update in regards to that?
You want to start with this one, Lauren, or do you want me?
Sure. Yeah, I was just going to ask the
Okay.
same thing. This is kind of a complex one because, as is kind of evident, this spans 2 departments and quite a number of employees. So this came up because one of our staff was notified that there were some concerns from one sports club about not being able to reserve fields because they had been fully booked up. And we kind of talked internally and figured that we didn't necessarily have guidance for that particular youth sports organization. And so we kind of wanted to bring back the whole question of policies as far as, how we're reserving these fields. It's a bit of a mixed bag now, is my understanding, that some groups are reserving exactly what they need. Some groups are kind of doing a blanket reservation and then not using all of those hours. And that inconsistency, as we're growing and as we're including all these great new parks, and as Eric has come on board and is getting his kind of specialized equipment and is more able to groom this stuff, we're looking for some direction from the park board on how to maybe standardize some of these policies and apply kind of one general policy going forward on that kind of thing. Elise, did you want to add anything from kind of a Leanne perspective?
Yeah, I think just, Leanne is obviously still managing the reservations. Some of that's getting, uploaded to the website. She'll have an update for that in April, but it's getting one by one kind of added as each facility comes on board, but she's still having to approve each reservation. So yeah, don't want to put her in a difficult situation where, one organization has, maybe is booking more than they actually end up using. Others are looking for some direction. I know that last year we kind of had some different arrangements, but sort of gave those a 1-year deadline to figure something else out, also buy us a little bit of time to figure out what the online reservation system would look like. So I think with the move to the online booking, as well as Eric coming on board and being able to, Lauren did a good job kind of explaining it here in the memo, but keep a better eye on the fields and making sure that they are playable to the extent possible, and keeping folks in the loop that might be using those parks if they are getting overused, or there's some kind of weather conditions that prevent them from being used, and trying to pivot there. So I think and also given some of the data we have last year as far as what was booked and then what was actually used, I think we have a little bit more to go on this year. And obviously spring reservations are coming in fast and furious. So just wanted to see where you all were landing as far as how you'd like us to handle reservations, you know, are folks able to, do they just need to pay for what they've reserved? Are they able to overbook and then kind of retroactively true that up and pay for what was actually used? There's a lot of, you know, kind of options on the table and like some feedback from you all.
Any thoughts from the park board?
Forget, go ahead, Judy. No, go ahead. Go.
No, I brought up last meeting that, I think it was a soccer that had 700 hours they used and they reserved 58. So they didn't use 5,000 hours. So can we work with that a little bit, get that down? I mean, this was our first year.
Correct,
So we're
yeah.
trying it.
What are we billing out, what we're billing out hourly? Is that right?
Yes, it's $2 an hour, I believe, for each field.
That didn't change this year?
No, we kept the fee structure the same, and then, yeah, the shelters and, well, the community room too, but the shelters, we didn't change the fees from last year to this year as well in the fee schedule, so it's
And
a
the
little slightly
concession
lower for nonprofits or community organizations, a little bit higher for residents and then non-residents.
I have a two-part question, but I'll let Dave go, because I know he was.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm thinking.
He's thinking.
Takes me a while.
One part doesn't, kind of goes over this, but doesn't, but it says, since you talked about fees, I know there was some feedback about the concession stand and the fees for that, and I think you guys were working that out, or.
Yeah,
at
I wasn't
some-
part
at
of
some
that meeting. Do you guys want to add anything?
Yeah, I can take that one. We did see that data and that was a concern of ours, so we're looking at ways to maybe drop that down, potentially look at a deposit kind of setup such that the teams are actually getting most of the money back and get credit if they're, you know, doing a great job of cleaning up afterwards. Just ways to make it more affordable and kind of let the teams break even. So we'll have a proposal on that hopefully within the next month or two.
I mean, because it would be a real shame to spend that money and not have it used.
Absolutely agree.
You know,
Yep.
I would
it's-
much rather have
yes.
it be used than try to make any money off of it.
Yep,
My
100%.
second question, then I guess to Lisa is, so we're hearing feedback from different organizations having problems scheduling. Is it, you know, stick and ball? Is it flat field? Like what kind of field? Because then we would know how to try, you know, who you would have to work with. You know, because obviously I don't think baseball would have a problem with soccer the way that they were scheduling things last year. But if it's rugby or football or, you know, I guess if you have more information on that, I was just curious.
Did she share that in the meeting that you guys had last week?
Yeah, I believe it was lacrosse, so it's kind of this is where, Eric, do you want to step in since you know sports?
Yeah, it's hard, yeah.
Yeah, so I had lacrosse reach out to me last week, actually wanting to use JC baseball fields.
Okay.
Because they had noticed that all the fields were already reserved, you know, all your
And they have a flat
multi-use
spot that they
fields.
could use, yeah.
Yeah. So that's where, you know, there's not a lot of ball diamonds around the field, so I think would like to kind of keep those open for baseball and softball if they want to use them. And I think we're certainly open to, at certain times, allowing other sports to play on them, but not all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I see it as a nice flat space that if you have the ability to have a smaller field, whether it's, you know, a youth soccer field, you know, in the outfield. I get the point of having it, you know, have a stick sport have priority because that's what it's for, but to me, it's a park.
Yep.
I mean, I've said that before, if I want to fly a kite out there, I'm gonna go fly a kite out there, and I should have every right to reserve it, you know, if anyone else does as well. I mean, in JC Community Park, until everything's done, I mean, there's not a lot of flat playing surface, you know, right now. I mean, so if you can use Stotts Field or, you know, the second field that's coming in, or just even that open space, you know, I think it would be good opportunities, but from the park board, I don't know what we can, you know, say. It's kind of a staff deal, but I know you're looking for,
Yeah.
you know, direction.
He's raising his hand.
Can you come up to the microphone? Yeah.
Certainly, Eric.
So, been doing this a long time, dealt with all of these groups a lot. Has there been a change? Girls Club Lacrosse used the flat field at JC Community Park last year. So 2 rest days, that leaves 5. They used it 4, we used it 1, which was Sunday because they said that they didn't need it. Is there a difference there, or do they need more? Or are we talking about boys lacrosse, which has all of the fields at Brooklyn?
No, this was youth girls lacrosse. And they had requested to use the JC outfields. And I think we had kind of talked between me, Nick, and Lauren that we wanted to, at least on JC and Highlands, kind of limit play in the spring until frost is out of the ground.
Oh, so you're meaning like right now?
Yeah.
Oh.
So they wanted to start this week.
Oh, yeah, see, okay. So, I mean, because when I heard that, I thought, who wants the fields that we use? Which is, I'm just gonna be honest, there are not a lot of people who want the fields we use. And like I said, knowing folks and talking to people and that, like, the understandings that we all have to try to make sure that everybody's kind of covered. And we also do this with OSD fields, and we have a big thing going on right now trying to figure out who's using what school district fields as well. So we've done all this, but my point would be, I understand the frustration somewhat with us overbooking. I understand it. I did kind of explain why we do it and why, why it makes sense for what we do. But the agreement we had on that was that if anybody had a conflict and needed space, that only we had, that they could contact us. And I think there was one time Leanne asked us and we said, absolutely, here you go. We'll move somewhere else. So I did want to just point out that, like, we work with all of these groups. Yes, we overbook, I agree. But we are not overbooking for some selfish reason to keep people from going there. I misunderstood that they wanted it like right now, because that was in my thought, like, we only requested JC for 1 day.
Yeah.
Like, we just said Sundays, could we be there on Sundays? And I haven't even heard back from Leanne I just requested exactly what we requested last year, because that worked. But, anyway, thank you, sorry. Just wanted to point those things out.
Yeah, no, thanks, Eric. And I think maybe part of the reason Leanne hasn't gotten back to him is we wanted to have this conversation with the park board. I do think, yeah, you did a good job kind of explaining the situation and why you guys do it the way you do it. And last year, we could look back at the minutes, but I think my understanding was it was just sort of a 1-year conversation, and then let's kind of see where we're at this time, next year, this winter, early springtime. So I guess there's multiple layers to all these questions, but multiple points here. But in the soccer is really the only organization that has that, as far as the multi-use fields has that set up. I think we've gotten some comments from some organizations, I won't name any names, that it feels a little unfair to them, even if there's not really been a conflict with the fields, and maybe they don't fully understand, why soccer does, do the overbooking, to have that flexibility. But I think the fact that soccer has, they pay retroactively. We did, get payment for everything in 2024, and now we have a good contact for their treasurer, so I imagine that'll run smoother than it did last year too. But we got paid for everything that they used, but it was, kind of a trimming up that was done a couple months afterwards. The other organizations are just paying when they book. So I think there's been a little bit of a question as to, why do they get to do that? Others don't. On the flip side too, if soccer wanted to just reserve what they felt that they would use and found that, hey, this field isn't ready, it's likely that there are other options available, and reaching out to staff, whether it be Eric or Leanne or whatnot. I think, there'd probably be other opportunities to find them a spot, even if it wasn't, likely not booked. It would not likely be booked. So I guess just as the spring reservations are moving forward, is there a policy you want to, do we want to try again what we did last year? As far as that request from soccer to kind of book what they use, or have a similar request in front of us for that kind of overbooking, and then just allow them the flexibility, or should we just instate kind of the blanket, you pay for what you use when you book it. If you need to use more than that or switch fields, then we'll kind of address that as it comes up. Tactic.
There's a lot of parts to this. Sorry, there's a lot of parts to this.
Yeah.
And we're kind of getting away from part of the original question. I mean, I want to work with all of the organizations and make it mostly fair. I mean, as fair as you can see it. Because otherwise we run the risk of like, okay, well, you make one organization, fine, we're not going to reserve any fields. We know no one's using it because we can look at the reservation system. We're going to go out there anyway. So I don't really want to revisit part of that. I mean, we can revisit it later, but the stuff with the different organizations, not using, now that we have more information, not, knowing what fields it is, if you feel like the fields aren't ready, then there's not much we can do about that. I mean, the best thing we can do is offer alternative space. I don't think they're going to want to drive all over the village, but other organizations do it. Like, hey, we don't. To me, if you lay out the reasons why you want to say no, people are more receptive to that than just saying no. But I think, there's plenty of open space here that I think there's spots we can find for them to use. It just may not all be together.
Mm-hmm.
Other thoughts?
So because I've reserved fields in my prior years for baseball, I know that when soccer sits down to reserve their time, it's a lot easier to just do it and get it done because it takes long enough to begin with. So, the throw out there is maybe we don't, you can reserve a month at a time. But the only problem with that is then if somebody jumps in front of you and takes, I don't know who would, but takes 10 of your fields for a month, you guys are without 10 fields that you need. I think, so is the main thing here is what we're trying to figure out is the offset of hours used opposed to hours booked. If I'm kind of understanding from what I read in Leanne's thing she sent out with the hours and stuff, that little chart she had, for example.
Yeah, generally, kind of what is the policy you guys want to make going forward with that?
So if we look at soccer, because obviously that's, no offense, but that's obviously what we're talking about. There was 58-ish hundred hours that were not used.
No, that were booked, and then
Booked.
700 they used. So there's 5,100.
So
they booked.
5,100 roughly that were not used at $2 an hour.
Right. Yeah, and I think the original, had they just paid for what they booked, it was somewhere in the realm of like $30,000, and I think what ended up being paid was like $1,200.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So realistically, there's roughly $10,000 sitting there that hasn't been, I shouldn't say hasn't been paid, but that's kind of the offset to all this.
Well, it was close to $28,000 that
Originally.
had been yeah. So that was another thing that we talked about,
originally.
maybe not explicitly at a park board meeting, but just again, we want to make sure these facilities get used. We're all for
Right.
getting kids outside and the community being active and things like that too. But we do budget for some of the reservations for the community room, the fields and shelters. So having kind of such a wild swing of, well, here's what's been booked, we could expect up to this amount, but in all reality, it's going to be significantly lower. Just creates a little bit of a you know, a budgeting conversation. Maybe we just anticipate that it's gonna be a lot lower, and if it ends up being higher, then we're pleasantly surprised, but, it can make it hard to, you know, invest in different equipment or, staff or something like that when we don't know exactly what will end up being used, versus what was booked.
And is Eric not getting them ready because he thinks there's gonna be a game?
So that was the other part of this that I wanted to add in, just having a little bit more structure to this and knowing when teams are gonna actually use the fields will make it a lot easier for us to kind of schedule our maintenance out there and getting stuff mowed, you know, the morning of the night they're gonna play a game or, you know, anything like that.
Right, rather than having 10 possible fields be used and not knowing which one would be kind of chosen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think more accurate reservation would be effective. And I appreciate the generosity that you have done in moving and adjusting that. It's great that you've been doing that, but should that be more of what the village staff is doing? And now we got a different tool. It's not email communication back and forth. So can that tool be used more effectively? And see that where if it managed from the village perspective versus the volunteer, that might be a little more effective to be able to realize that. Adds a little more burden from the village staff, but now we get other resources and other avenues that also make a difference. If we're gonna take that maintenance side of it together, then it does impact it as well. So I think that large portion of it. Is there a chance to project more realistic? You know, now we had some numbers from last year come forward, so that can give us a little better perspective of what the real use may end up being. Is that a chance? Can utilize some of that in the expense side.
Mhm.
I know we're always going to inherit that somebody else is getting a better benefit than us. You're always going to run into that, so you can't always win that. But that's the nature of public entities by itself. But I think it should be more reasonable of what the actual use is. I think we could utilize some of that.
Well, and that's why we approved the chart, for Leanne to have that, so she didn't have to call Eric, or she didn't have,
Right.
it was all gonna be, that chart was gonna help Eric know what games are ready and all the other stuff to go with it. So, he's watching the chart, is what he's doing.
I'm gonna add one more comment here.
Yes.
Knowing what type of field preparation that some organizations do versus other organizations, I'm willing to cut those that, you know, are more active participants in field prep a little more slack than others.
Was that one thing, Eric, you guys kind of talked about too, just maybe moving away a little bit from some of the volunteer-led organizations doing some of that prep? I know we've had a couple of issues with some of the fields maybe not getting cut to an appropriate length and.
Yeah, so we cut most of the parks in the village at a higher height than you guys use for soccer, and we've talked about that before. But I think between talking with Lauren and Nick, we've definitely talked about moving more away from volunteer to in-house work on JC and Highlands. Just kind of protecting that investment and allowing us to kind of move that field north and south at JC to kind of, you know, reduce those wear spots and things like that.
But that's not new. I mean, that was kind of, Highlands has been that way already. I mean, because you guys weren't mowing there, right?
We have not touched either of those fields
Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
except to paint them.
Right.
Mhm. So, and that is something that we've talked about, like painting those in-house.
Oh, painting it.
So we can kind of control, you know, on that surface where that field sits and, well, I mean, and that's exactly kind of the point of this, is it's not just here to benefit us. If we had a better idea of when you guys are gonna use those fields, that we can get them mowed for you guys. And we can work
Painted,
together on a mowing height for that, and you don't have to pay somebody to mow it.
Just to be honest, the reason we bought a mower and have people mow is because we had too many situations where we showed up for a game and the grass was
Right.
up over our ankles. And then we said, could we get a mowing schedule? And the answer was, there isn't one.
Yeah.
We do it when we can, and we were like, well, we can't take that risk.
Yep.
When we have people driving from Platteville to play a game, so we'll just buy them over.
Yeah.
As long as y'all are good with it, we'll mow it, and they said, okay.
Yep.
So,
Sounds like things are different now.
Yeah, obviously, I'm still kind of new to this. I got here so late that you guys were just kind of wrapping up your fall season at the time.
So Eric, let's take this on a little bit more of a tangent than we already are. But, so you would be proposing that staff would take care of the mowing and the painting. So not just mowing, but painting as well for Highlands and Netherwood and JC Community Park, but you would not be painting any of the other fields.
Correct.
Now, is that just for the flat playing fields, or are you gonna be striping the baseball fields and softball fields too?
That'll be for baseball and softball as well.
Huh. So, I mean, so then I go into the fees that are being paid for. I mean, one of the reasons the $2 fee was agreed on was because those organizations were doing some of that labor and maintenance themselves, where they'd go out and stripe things. You know, or soccer was out painting stuff. I mean, so if you're getting more for your dollar now, and obviously there's a cost to the village, you know, for that with, you know, staff time and resources. I mean, I think another conversation we'll have to have is eventually, you know, increasing these fees as well. But I'm trying to get back to the original question about scheduling, and I don't know how to get back there other than, to me, is reaching out to the organizations and figuring out what's really needed, at least for that instance. I don't think there's anything we can do as a blanket that's gonna solve all of this.
So, why do you want the village to take over this? Just out of curiosity.
Control. I mean, it really is what it is.
This is what I went to school
Yeah.
for, so,
Yeah.
and I think you guys can agree that those fields should be held to a little bit higher standard than your, Bergamot Park or any of the other parks around the village.
I'm pretty sure 12,000 people in this community want that. Honestly, I don't think anybody wants those parks to end up looking, no offense to Kaiser Park, but I don't think we want that to fall that way. So I would say yes. I hope we hold them to a higher standard. Yeah.
I mean, control is not a negative word here. You know,
Right.
I always want you to know that. I mean, you want to be able to manage it, and you want to be able to take care of it.
Yep.
Yeah, both of those fields have underground drainage and sprinklers and things like that too. So there's also just more kind of equipment to be maintained, and I want to make sure that we're taking good care of the new parks and the infrastructure that's there.
I think maybe one, possibly in the memo, and as we're talking this through, undersold aspect of all of this is Eric himself is an investment that the village has made that we didn't have, I think, last year when this program was kind of being discussed. And that's, residents are paying for his expertise and paying for his knowledge here, and we have him now, so he's kind of a big factor in this.
Not to bring up another can of worms, but was there something that you guys wanted to cover too regarding some of the court usage as well at JC, or is that a separate conversation?
I think maybe we stick with this one
Yeah,
for
okay.
now, and we'll come
I just
back
wanted to
with
make
some
sure
more
that that wasn't
ideas.
something that you wanted to cover this month, so.
Nope, we'll come back with
Okay.
some more on that.
Stay tuned.
I make one comment on the fuel usage.
Yeah.
Ryan Stace again, baseball. I don't wanna sidetrack the conversation, but another thing just to maybe to take into account when you consider this is, like Eric made the comment, there's only so many ball diamonds. To my knowledge, baseball, I think, is the only organization in town still renting fields in other communities, cause we don't have enough. Like even last summer, we paid about $7,000 in field rental in Fitchburg and Stoughton for Oregon kids to play baseball, cause we don't have enough fields. And so while we're certainly willing to share, it's not that we should like have priority or necessarily like rule the park. Stats Field has a movable fence to try to allow for a flat surface. Like we're certainly willing to work with others, but something I hear a ton from our members is, why is my kid going to Stoughton? Why is my kid going to Fitchburg? Fitchburg's in our school district. Like, some of that they just, but I just hear constantly, why are we traveling out of the community to play Oregon community baseball? So just something else to consider in the field usage. Like, we're heading in the right direction. JC Park is gonna alleviate a lot of that. I reserved far less space this upcoming summer than previously. But just another thing to consider, right, is I field a lot of questions on why Oregon kids are leaving, and they don't even know how much we pay for them to leave either, right? Like, they just are wondering why they have to drive 20 minutes. So, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I don't know if you want to make a motion, but what I heard was, one, maybe not for this year, but taking a look at just the actual cost to maintain some of these, and if do we want to adjust the fee schedule to better accommodate, more of the staff time, and taking that into account. And then also, I think I heard some comments about booking what will be used, and then if additional booking needs to happen, coordinating with staff and kind of addressing at that time versus less of the overbooking that has happened in the past. Is that correct?
I don't know if it can be that black and white with the booking. Like I said, I mean, soccer does a lot of things on the parks that aren't Highland and Netherwood or JC Community Park. So to me, that kind of fosters more goodwill to be more lenient with the booking. So I can't say yes or no to that comment because it's really gray. But I mean, if there's a way that soccer could get closer to, the booking and not be, 5,000% over what they expect, that would be great. But again, a lot of them, the conflict's not there. It's with some of the other organizations. Sorry.
Do we have a different rate for JC and Highland? Where the Warwood staff is doing more of the maintenance side of it?
Is that the conversation we're having now too? I mean, it's all kind of thrown together. Yeah, I mean, it's something to consider. I don't think it has to be cost neutral, but I mean, you're getting more for, you're obviously getting more, so you should anticipate paying a little bit more.
Right.
It doesn't have to be exponentially larger.
Well, is it because of the extra, the fields weren't good, or what was the 5,000 difference? Was it just
The difference for us?
Yeah.
The number of hours.
So the biggest issue is, so I was thinking this through while Ryan was talking. So my kids played baseball as well, right? And if you have kids that play, like Dave knows this, certain leagues play certain days. Whatever your age is, you play on a Thursday, you play on a Wednesday, whatever. Soccer doesn't have that. We started 2 weeks ago putting together the schedule for this spring. There are games, name a day, there's a game somewhere. So there's no, I was trying to just go through in my head how, you're gonna make the decision you're gonna make and the village board's gonna make a decision. We're stuck for the spring. We've already committed this to people from Platteville and Beaver Dam and Reedsburg and all this, right? So if that's what it is, we'll figure it out and we'll come up with a different plan for the fall. Leanne just asked for our spring, so we did that. But I get 30, 40 emails a day from people across the state trying to move games. And some of them are on Thursdays and some of them are on Fridays and some are Sundays and Tuesdays. And if it's a Saturday or Sunday, it could be literally any time from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So, and as I pointed out, we've got 170 paid, a couple paid, and mainly volunteer coaches who have families and jobs and all that stuff. So us being able to say, okay, just pick a time, we can make this work. That is the main reason why we have huge gaps in here. also, a lot of this stuff doesn't get, so I was even thinking through, like you said, well, could you just tell us, okay, I mean, I could do that. I do that. We put together a schedule every Thursday to set up from Friday through the next. But that's, I mean, that could change the second after I do it. Like, it could rain, it could snow, and then suddenly all 22 games that we were gonna have in Oregon on Saturday now have to be dispersed across some other number of days. And it's not, so it's not like Ryan in baseball, right? Like, when my kid played baseball, they played on Wednesday, and if it rained, then they played the next Wednesday, or the next Wednesday, and the next Wednesday, and the next Wednesday. So it's much more, and lacrosse has the same thing. At least girls does, because that was part of their deal. They never had any games on Sundays. So they said, go ahead, use JC, we don't need it, because every game we play is on Saturday. We just, that's just not how it works. And I did have, like, somebody once said, well, why don't you just make it work like that? And I said, I can't, like, there's 64 different clubs that all have, 10 to 15 teams. We've got 39 teams right now from U9 and older. And that doesn't even include all of our in-house people who just are Oregon versus Oregon. So I was trying to think of how, like, what we probably would do is we would still book fields for the maximum amount of time we could. We'd just book fewer of them, I think. And we would just say, well, we're just gonna jam everything onto these fields. That was part of what I brought up last year, which was the other thing this allows us to do is not play from sun up to sundown on one field every single Saturday and Sunday. In our current system, we have a game or two, and then there's a break or a rest, or maybe we only have 2 games on a field on a day. But I think the answer would have to be, because we need that flexibility time-wise. Like, time is the one thing we can't fix.
Yeah, I mean, Eric,
So, I think that's what we would do.
I was gonna say, to your point though, the spaces that you're using are spaces that aren't gonna be used by anyone else.
Well, and
The majority of them.
Yeah, and like I said, if people want them, we always, because as soon as Lauren said it, I was like, who could be mad at us? Because we work with baseball, we work with softball, we work with football, we work with lacrosse, like we work with anybody who needs space. And at least talking to one of your points, if it would be easier for us to pay a fee up front, whatever that would be, we could talk about that too. That's fine too. If that's a big issue, totally fine. Another question I had was, and I don't know the system and Leanne's not here. Do we know, can people cancel reservations in this system? So if I make reservations, can I cancel them or do I have to go through Leanne?
I think you will be able to, but yeah, I can clarify with her and.
So that could be a way that, like, because even if I give you a schedule and I'm like, this is just the life I live, but like, we try to make decisions by 2:00, right? And on a weekday. And a lot of times, it's kind of rainy, it's kind of not, we're looking at radars, we're trying to predict what's gonna happen. It could be, we might say, yep, we're playing, and then at 1:30, we're like, nope, we're not. You gotta reschedule that, you gotta find another day for it. And having not many options for that reschedule is where we start getting into like, well, I don't have any more time. I coach 3 teams, I don't have any other time. So.
This was also just my observation last year, maybe this wasn't totally accurate, but that there was, a number of parks that were booked on a given day, but there tended to be maybe just a certain coach or a certain age, parks that were sort of preferred and parks that didn't end up getting used. Some were used more than others, basically. So like Norm Champion, for example, I know that's because it's just near.
We tried to not use Norm Champion in the fall because there are neighbors there who don't really like us being there, and I understand some of the rationale behind it. And we've tried to address that. But
and I know that field ended up probably in worse shape than some of the others, that have been booked but maybe didn't get used as much.
It was heavily used last spring. And so we also thought, let's try to rest, let's try to just let it be and not keep hammering on it. And that combined with the fact that some of the neighbors don't really like us there, we thought, let's just stay away and try to keep people happy.
Yeah.
But we'll be back there. We're planning to be back there in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I was just thinking like, if there's a way to make the flexible situation work better, maybe it's that more, of the cadre of parks that you're asking for, they're all getting used on a more even basis rather than, well, these are our preferred parks, and if we have to go to these other parks, then they're kind of our second choice but
Yeah, so
again,
some of-
it doesn't
some of-
help necessarily you guys plan for which parks are gonna be used on a given week and mowing and, yeah.
No, I
It's
mean,
hard to
this
find a
is
perfect
just
solution.
me
Yeah.
trying to help you guys out a little
Yeah.
bit, right? And
That's why I agreed to go ahead and pay for this computer program, so that you could go in, everybody could go in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I thought it was pretty high.
Yeah, and just to remind you too, our current website that we updated last summer, was it, that went live? We actually have the ability in what we were already paying for to have reservations, so that's what's being kind of built out right now. So there was not a separate fee that was paid for like Rec Desk is one we looked at and some others. So Candy and Leanne kind of looked at the capabilities of our new website, and there's already that ability to do the reservation, so it was not an additional fee just for the field and park reservations. Yeah, it's complicated, and I think we're all, coming from a similar place, we wanna make sure that, kids are able to be active and that the parks stay in good condition. It's just, is there a way, is it just gonna be inherently kind of, each organization is treated differently based on the scale and how they operate, or, should there be a more standardized policy? We can revisit it in April too.
One benefit to that idea is by April, we'll know yes or no on the referendum, which will impact public works staffing in particular, and park staffing. So it might be beneficial to sit on it and just see how that shakes out.
What other information be worthwhile to gather? And it talked about your expenses. Would it be worthwhile to understand the cost of the village with adding Eric, the equipment?
And
Under-
Leanne.
I
No,
think-
she does quite a bit with it.
Yep, definitely. Understand that aspect of it.
One piece of information I wasn't able to get that I think could be really helpful is knowing what other communities, particularly other nearby communities, do for this kind of thing. Fitchburg, McFarland, any of the Dane
Forest
County
is a good
communities. Yep, yeah, so we can certainly dig into that.
That might be useful.
What are you thinking, Dave?
Dave, you got anything?
I've got tons, but I'm so confused what to talk, I don't even know where to
Right.
start. I understand Eric's point because I've done it. If you don't book this stuff out early and you know you need it, because that's what you're doing. And it's very difficult to book 5 fields for an organization that size, or if baseball just booked the 4 fields here, which is a little different sport, I get that, but, if they only did 2 fields and let the other ones just kind of hang there, it's gonna burn them, because they're gonna need it. And that's why it's difficult, as much as it's an issue, because there's so much of that offset from what was booked to what was used. But I completely understand why you have to book that much of it, or when you book it, you need to get it all. So I don't really know how you can get away from that. I don't. I think the idea is how we can figure out somehow, if there's a way that, even if you went in under every month and you canceled, it's too late. So if you cancel on the 30th of every month and you didn't use it for a whole week, nobody could get it because it was booked. So there's really nothing you can do there. I don't know. I think this might be a conversation that could last a long time at many meetings, and I don't know that we'd ever come up with an actual solution to this. I just don't know how you would do it. But, I mean, Eric, would it be possible just for, this isn't, I wonder if I'd be curious if somehow you guys, and I'm not trying to put more on you or anyone else in your organization, because I know the amount of time you guys put in. But I wonder if there'd be a way you could go each month or whenever you can and just go back in the month and take away what you didn't use out of curiosity. And if all of a sudden at the end of summer, we have you come in and you just kind of give us those numbers just out of, and if you're returning or not using, I'm picking a number, 50 hours of field space, then the following year, do we look at maybe leaving a couple of fields just hang, not be reserved, so you're reserving kind of your major ones that you use, which, I know there's fields you use that probably put the little tykes on them more so than anything, because you don't need the whole big fancy field for them. Are those the things we don't book if not necessary? And you just kind of go, if it's a week by week thing with them. I don't know. It's just a thought. And again, I don't necessarily want to put more on your plate to have to do, but I'd be curious if you're finding that you guys are returning 100 hours a month of fields not being used kind of thing. Would that help us come up with anything? I don't know.
Yeah, whatever we can do to help. I mean, let's be clear, we were very appreciative that you gave us the exemption to do it differently last time. We're open to trying whatever and anything to address, the situation here.
Yeah.
But to me, again, though, the bottom line is these are most likely anything we don't book isn't gonna be booked by someone else.
Well, that's to Andy's point before, and I was gonna say the same thing. I really don't, I don't know who's running to book those fields if you weren't booking them. I don't know what organizations are. And, I mean, it's probably nobody really in Oregon, and I don't know how many people outside of Oregon are looking to book our fields. I'm not sure. I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know who else would be trying to book the soccer fields that you have booked, so to speak. Baseball has their field, softball has theirs. Is it lacrosse? But if it is, then they usually, like you said, they come to you and you give up some space for them to use if needed, which is great. But I really don't know how we're gonna really truly solve this or I don't know. I have no idea which way to do it.
Well, I mean, like I said, if it was black and white, like, you're gonna get charged for what you book, we would just pick some fields probably and not book them.
Yep.
And because, I mean, as I pointed out a year ago, that field is not sustainable for,
Right.
you can pay it
Right.
once.
Yeah.
But it's not sustainable
Mhm.
going forward, so.
Oh, no.
Our answer would probably be, but then nobody's gonna use those fields. I mean, so we would have a more challenging experience for our families. And no, the village would not recoup anything from it because nobody would step in and replace us using it, even if it's not for the amount of time that we will. So, but we're completely open to trying to work together to try to find a solution that works for everybody, if that can be found.
Eric, what type of things do you need, that you need in the short order? Is there something in particular, or is it for us to ponder and potentially get some more information?
No, I think this is something that definitely shouldn't be decided tonight. There's a lot going into this, and just, kind of look at different ways that we can do this. I mean, really for me, it's me knowing where I can do the maintenance to better help the organizations in the village and how I can help Eric not have to pay for people to mow all the time. And, the one thing I will say, and again, I won't single anybody out, but there has been people that just, they don't like when they have to call and book a field and then it has to go through not the village to get that field booked, if you understand what I'm saying. They don't like that they have to call and then it has to go through soccer and then back to them to be able to book it. They see it as it should be something they should be able to go on the computer or call Leanne and say, hey, what fields do you have open these days? We want to have practices and not have to go through, another organization that already has everything booked.
Yeah, maybe part of that question is who should be kind of the gatekeeper of these parks? Is it, well, soccer has all these reserved, you need to kind of ask with them. Usually, again, they've been more than happy to help out and find something that's available, but is that how that should be done, or should it be staff, is this available? You can see it now on the calendar, so if people, did see that whatever Rustic Vineyards is booked or something, they wouldn't
thoughts that I
necessarily know.
Think about that as the
Yeah.
tentative booking. I don't know if the software can do anything in regards to that. It's just a reserve type of thing.
Yeah.
It shows up a little
Yeah,
differently.
I can check with that too, and ask her about the canceling as well. I guess, like on the flip side, why couldn't soccer call and say, hey, it looks like Durham Champion, we'll just pick on that, is too wet to play on, what other parks do you have available? Maybe just given their time frame and turnaround, and, this isn't the only thing that Leanne does either, so, maybe that's not realistic, and we don't wanna put so much on staff that it becomes inefficient too, but yeah, is there a better balance to strike so that Eric can plan a little bit better ahead as far as maintenance? People feel like they have a good understanding of, if something appears to be booked, maybe there's just a note on there that says, if something looks like it's booked, but you really need that time, give staff a call, and maybe it's, Leanne or somebody's the middleman and she calls soccer, if somebody feels uncomfortable, kind of getting permission from them to use the field or something like that, but, yeah, I think having her here next month, and like you said, more information on the referendum, we can look into some of these other things too. I won't be here, but other people will do a great job for participating and hopefully helping outline maybe more specifically what feedback we'd like to get from you guys. I know we didn't want to direct you as far as where the conversation would go, but we also want to get some specific feedback so we know how to respond to the public.
Mark, I have just a couple of comments, and then
Yes.
I swear I'll stop. Laura, I think finding out what other communities are doing, I think that's good. We kind of looked at that a little bit last spring, but to know, not only what their fee structure, but what they're doing for maintenance. Eric, I would ask, maybe find out what some of the sports organizations are willing to do, or what they're not willing to do, or what you are willing to let them, do as far, whether it's, striping, putting the lines, or, obviously not mowing at those two parks, would be ways to look at this. Trying to do this overbooking versus cancellations and stuff, and at least you talked about, contacting staff, well, then that just takes them away from doing something else, so at that point, we're spending more money than anything that we would be collecting, for that. So obviously that's a challenge, but my last comment is, when people go on there and see that something's reserved, again, I don't think it's a soccer issue because those fields aren't being used. A lot of those spaces aren't being used for that. Things that are not Highlands and Netherwood or JC Community Park, they're just not being used. But isn't that why we have reservations in the first place, to say, hey, this is being used? Okay, if it's being used, okay, then reach out to staff, where can I play then, or come up with it. I get it too. It feels like summer school registration where, all of a sudden registration's open and you've got 3 seconds to get all your classes or get all your fields on, and if you're late coming to that, you're just out of luck. So maybe that needs to be looked at. So, but I look forward to thinking about this for 4 weeks and coming back and having a longer discussion about this.
Yeah. I think in the past, there's been like a deadline where there was an email that was sent out, you need to get all the organizations, community organizations, sports, everybody, by February 1st.
Yep.
Send us your preferences, and we used to bring it to the park board and we kind of put it back on staff. Now it seems like it's been a little bit more of a rolling basis because different people are kind of ready at different times too. Maybe they don't know how many, softball teams they're gonna have in a given summer or something like that too. So they're booking later in the year as they have the
Registrations
information
are
they
complete.
need. Yeah. So it's everyone, you know, this is what happens when you work with all these different organizations. Everyone does something differently, and trying to meet people where they are, but also do what we need to do on our side to make sure that our facilities are taken care of and gonna be sustainable for everybody, families and organizations alike.
Yeah, that is true. Well, some things to consider. So we got an action, or got the right type of things you guys can look, can help us out? We'll give some thought to it. All right.
Put it on the April agenda. Thanks.
Well, you're not gonna be here, just.
Yeah, have fun. I'll watch from.
Eric, thank you. Appreciate your ideas as well. Let's see, 7C, upcoming meetings, Tuesday, April 8th, as well as Tuesday, May 13th. Do we see any conflicts with any one of those?
We're gonna be
That's the right answer, Judy. I like that. All right, very good. Items D, any future meetings and assignments? I don't have anything. Does anybody else? None?
Possibly. I'm not quite sure on the specifics, but I am going to I got accepted into like a music camp in Michigan for 6 weeks over the summer. So I might have to miss a few meetings. I'll look into that and have like something concrete by next.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Yes.
Thanks, yeah. Just
Wonderful.
let us know the dates and we'll just pick up when you get back. You won't get kicked off for missing 2 meetings.
You can't get kicked out.
You're stuck.
So we give a chance for any park board members to have any comments. No action items, no creative discussion, but just any thoughts. Judy, do you have any?
Nothing today.
All right, Nico. All right, Andy.
It's been fun.
It's been fun. Always welcome. David?
Not for me.
Nothing from my part either, so let's call for an adjournment.
I move.
Nico,
I
you got
second.
second? Awesome. All in favor, state by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. So moved. Thank you all.
Thank you much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.